When the news broke that there would be a new pope, a media frenzy began, and the world wanted to know what Catholics hoped for with new leadership. One question that was frequently in the media was, should there be women priests? But is this really a priority for women in the Church? And if not, what are they hoping for with the election of a new pope? Joining us today is Nicole Castellino, who is a doctoral student at Regis College, and you're also a pastoral associate for the Catholic chaplaincy at the University of Toronto. And a familiar face to our viewers is Jillian Cantor. You're a mother of 3, is that right?
Yes.
And host of Word for Word and Catholic Focus, and also our own Sheridan Sanders, recently married, and you're the host of The Church Alive on Salt and Light. So thanks all of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, Jillian, I'll begin with you. Before working at Salt and Light, you were at the Catholic Register, so you've been with the media for a while. Are you surprised by the media fixation on this one question of women priests?
Well, I've worked for the Catholic media for a while, so I think there is a bit of a difference there. But
Okay.
I would say that from a personal perspective, yes, surprised and frustrated that this seems to be a reoccurring question. But looking outwardly at secular media, and if they don't have necessarily a full understanding of the Church or the teachings of the Church, then they're looking at this election as they would any other, very political, secular terms. And it's almost as though they think this should be the rebranding of the Catholic Church. Now is the time. And so there is a responsibility for Catholic media and for Catholics in general to kind of set that straight and say, no, we're not about to just bend toward the whims of society, but that this election stands for something greater, and we will uphold the teachings and the faithfulness of the Catholic Church.
And Nicole and Sheridan, both of you have been in the media in recent weeks, and you've been asked the question, should the Church change its teachings on women in the priesthood? And you've said no. Why is that?
Well, I think that, for me, it seems like beating a dead horse. This is a 2,000-year-old tradition, and at the end of the day, what it comes down to is our fidelity to Christ's action in the Church. This is something that he instituted. And I think that a lot of the problem is that we live in a world today with so much gender homogenization, where society, not God, but society tries to tell us that gender just doesn't matter anymore. It's as extrinsic as like my blazer that I'm wearing. But when you look at the Church's teaching, you see that it has a huge theological anthropology, and that this is quite significant when you look at Christ's teaching, his covenantal and his sacramental plan for his Church and for our salvation.
Now, I think that what the media are implicitly asking is, are women less valued by the Church because they're not in these leadership roles? Sheridan, do you feel that way?
Absolutely not. I think it's important for us to remember that we're called to holiness, we're called to sanctity, and we're, as baptized Christians, all on the same playing field there. So it doesn't presume any type of incapability. It just says that our roles are distinctive, and that's something I think that Nikki has sort of touched on earlier.
Are all 3 of you frustrated that this topic has come up so much?
Yes.
Yes, but if it is on the minds of people, then it's good that you have Catholic women who are advocating for this etymology of Christian femininity.
Okay, I see. And you've been in the media so much, they're actually calling you a women's
Oh my
issues
goodness.
expert on the news because you've been talking about it so much. Now, there is this old model in the Church that the priest does everything. And maybe this is one of the sources of why we're getting all these questions. Do women play important other roles in the Church?
For sure. I think we can just look at something like Focolare, where we have
which is a lay movement.
Lay movement founded by a woman, and it is a huge reach around the world, 182 countries, and 2 million participants in it. So I think that we just don't see women outside of these sort of roles. We haven't done a good job of promoting the different ways that we do play an important role in the Church, but it certainly exists.
And what are some of the other roles, even on a parish level, that we see women who are very involved? Jillian, what do you see in your parish?
Well, first of all, I see a lot of moms. And,
Okay.
And I don't think that's a role that we should ignore or just pass by. It's just a mom. But that we are raising this generation of hopefully faithful Catholics, and that we have this very important caregiving roles, and not just for our children, but our parents or the elderly within that parish community, or whomever it is. So we do have that role as caregivers. Then there's also, just even within one parish, there might be the pastoral assistants or the children's liturgy leaders, lectors, any number of ministries in the church. You will see women participating in it. And I think it really is, when you take a look at that average church on a Sunday, you will see that balance between men and women, and the roles and the care and love that we can put into those roles.
And so if you're not going to the parish on a Sunday, if you're not involved in the life of the church, you're simply not going to see this reality.
That's right, I think, yeah.
I think it's also important for us not to remember, not to forget about the doctors of the church and all the women saints. That's another thing that I think is not promoted enough.
Right. You have St. Clare or St. Teresa of Avila, both founders of significant religious movements. You know, St. Catherine of Siena, who was the advisor for Gregory the 11th.
For a pope.
Right, and for, during the Avignon papacy. And then you have, she was also called to be the advisor for Urban VI right after that. He wanted her when the church was facing the controversy of the Great Schism. So you see, like, the church reveres these women too. St. Teresa and St. Catherine as doctors of the church. All you have to do is pick up their writings and see the depth that they have to offer, their profound spiritual lives and their profound contributions to the unity of the church at the time.
Now, apart from what you've mentioned, and apart from the ordination of women, do you think there's avenues for increased leadership roles for women in the church, or recognition of these things that you say aren't well known?
Yes, certainly I think we have to do a better job communicating what we've already done, and that the church does recognize us. But I think that even as women, we don't do enough to promote what other women are doing.
Okay.
So there is something that could be done on a practical level.
Right, and just feeling, seeing the value behind all the different roles that we have, would really help bring to the forefront the work that women do to its fruition.
Now, I want to ask each of you about how the church can help support you in your own particular vocations, and so I'll be asking you that in just one moment.
Let us know your perspective. Email us at perspectives@saltandlighttv.org or reach us by mail, Perspectives at Salt and Light Television, 114 Richmond Street East, Toronto, Ontario, M5C 1P1, or call us toll-free at 1-888-302-7181. Let your perspective be heard.
I'm back in the studio with Nicole Castellino, a doctoral student at Regis College, Gillian Cantor, a mother of 3, and Sheridan Sanders, a producer here at Salt and Light. It's said that we all share in the priesthood of Jesus as baptized believers. But what does this sense of the priesthood mean for all of us who are not ordained?
Well, I think what that's trying to say is that we participate in a universal priesthood.
Okay.
We are all called to be Christ, his extension to a world. And when we understand that it's not particularly our function or role in society that matters, but rather it's an act of service, going back to just what is the message of Christ and how do I live out that call to holiness in my day-to-day surroundings, touching the people I meet. We are living out our universal priesthood. We're acting as his representatives, as his ambassadors in that way.
And really the priesthood of the ordained priesthood, the clergy, that represents really I guess a tiny fraction of the roles in the church. And so that's one reason why I find this media fixation a little bit strange, because I guess we don't want everybody to be ordained priests, because there's other roles as well.
Exactly.
Very important roles.
Now, what does our reverence of Mary say about us and about the value of women in our church?
I'd say firstly that it recognizes that we do value women, very simply. Yes, we value women, and we value this beautiful, holy woman who brought God into this world, and that she has a role to play still today. She wasn't simply just the mother of Christ, but she is our mother, and she's an example of womanhood and holiness, of surrender, but also of great power. Just think of the things that she did throughout her lifetime in raising the Son of God, and both the joy and the pain that she experienced in that role. And certainly that is an example to all women, and certainly just how can we live our life with grace, and that's we just look toward Mary and see that.
And that's been there since the very beginning. Now the irony for me in all this talk about women in the church, and you mentioned this, Jillian, is that you see a lot of mothers in the church, you see a lot of women. Women far outnumber men in the pews. If anyone is feeling alienated in the church, perhaps it's these husbands who are not joining them for Mass on Sunday morning. Why do you think that there are more women at Mass, more women involved in the various ministries of the church?
I've been looking into reading and just listening to various talks recently on the feminine genius, and
what does that mean?
That is, made more popularly known in a letter that Pope John Paul II wrote to women in 1995. And what does it mean? That's a whole episode unto itself. But briefly, it just, or to sum it up, really is it defines our role as women, as Christian women, and who we are, and to embrace that. And who is that? Well, for one piece of that, one very small piece, but an essential piece, is a caregiver. Women are caregivers. And I think that's really why you can see us in the pews, is because we are caring for that whole person. The spiritual side of things takes it's a huge part of who we are. And so for ourselves, or from whoever it is that we bring to church, whether it's our children, our parents, our friends, our neighbors, whoever it is, we care for them so much that we want to see them come to church and to Christ. And that's not to say that men don't, but I think that there is something within us, just in how we were made and who God made us to be, that puts a priority, that becomes a priority for us.
Now, do you think that women, in some sense, and I don't mean to really generalize, but have a greater spiritual sense about them? It's a difficult question.
Interesting question.
I don't think so. I think God made us equal in that sense. I think that we all have a capacity to love God and to participate in His life. So I wouldn't say that.
Anything to add about that?
No, I guess for me, when I look at mothers, like as Jillian was saying, and even the history of like some really great mothers like St. Monica, or my own mother, and my grandmother, or women I know, and I look at their spirituality, I wouldn't say that men have less of a spirituality, but I definitely feel like it manifests maybe in a different way, in a very visible way. I can almost see this aura around like my mother when she prays, and it's just a very kind of touching and intimate union that I feel like she has.
Now, in regards to your own particular vocations, starting with you, Sheridan, you're recently married. What kind of support do you feel that you'd like to receive to help you thrive in that particular vocation of yours, or even ways in which the church can deepen that support?
I think it's very important for us to band together in community and in friendship, because as a young married couple, you're going through a lot of new experiences for the first time, and there are things that you have to resolve, and you have to learn how to communicate, and you have to learn how to share and do all these things that you haven't been really called to in the same way before. And so I think that creating opportunities for people to get together and to share and to talk about these experiences, and also to figure out how they can more concretely put into practice the teachings of the church in their daily lives. Because I think that with all these things going on around you, you can lose focus. And I think there's a lot of pressure from the outside to conform to the ways of the world. And we really are called to be different, and it takes a lot of focus to stay faithful. So.
Now, what about you, Jillian? I'm sure that when you became a mother, your priorities changed, your concerns changed. How do you think that the church can help you to become a better parent? What would you tell the Pope if you're giving him advice in his new job?
Oh, awesome. I had no idea. No, I think in order to assist me in my vocation, I think the church needs to to work on the formation of the other vocations.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that makes sense. I'll try to explain a little bit better. But to form priests and nuns and deacons and all religious who are going to understand the role of family within the church, and that they will be able to recognize when they see that family with however many kids, that that is the future of the church, that is the life of the church. And so therefore I'm going to support that family, that husband and that wife, that mother, that father, in any way that I can, whether it's something simple, a ministry for parents, a Bible study for moms, hearing my confession when it's convenient for me because I can't come, you know, when their times are listed, just because of the dragging a lot of kids along. So just things like that, that they're going to see that there is life in that vocation of family, and that they're going to be able to help me with that. We have the responsibility to look after ourselves too in our vocation, but certainly we need those outward supports. And you know, our understanding of the universal church is often influenced by our own personal experiences at the parish level.
Certainly.
And I've been really blessed to have very positive experiences, so I've never had that opportunity or the experience of being turned down if I've asked for whatever my request might be. I know that's not always the case, but we need to make sure that those aren't the cases. We need to make sure that there are those positive experiences for all of families and for all vocations. So.
Now, lastly, we're almost out of time, but Nicole, in your work at the Newman Center, you encounter a lot of women at various different places in their faith journey. How can the church help you help these women who come to you?
Well, I think like Benedict said, you know, this is a time for great faith. Jillian was saying formation is key. We need recatechesis in the church. We need a better understanding of our etymology. We need to know our natures, what makes them distinct but complementary. Right now at Newman Center, you know, we have 40 students off for a Theology of the Body retreat.
Wow.
We've got students coming in every day with these questing minds, hungry for the truth. How can we feed them, and how can we catechize them in a way that's going to best fit them?
Now, we always like to end our show with the Word, meaning the Word of God. And scripture passage from Galatians 3:28. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you all are one in Christ Jesus. Sheridan, if I could begin with you, your thoughts.
It just reminds me of the idea that when I became baptized and when I continued into my faith journey, that I put on the mantle of Christ. And so that my identity is Christ. Now I live for Him. I live so that I might imitate Him better.
Jillian.
Tricky one to follow. I would say that it just reminds me that we are created in God's image, and whoever that is, man or woman, we are all created in God's image. And what that means is individually, I need to recognize that and to work on my relationship with Christ who created me. But communally, I need to respect those different roles. We need to come together so that we can complement each other, so the church can see the fullness of life.
And Nicole?
Well, for me, what hits home is that, you know, there's one mission, there's one universal church, and we are all equally called to be members of this church and participate with our whole hearts, you know, and to give ourselves with humility and put ourselves at the foot of the cross in the service. That should be our focus, and in doing that, we can all work for the greater glory of God.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Nicole, Jillian, Sheridan, for sharing with us how women feel as we're approaching this new papacy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now you can share your perspectives with us. You can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/saltandlighttv. And to learn more about the papal transition and all our coverage, go to saltandlighttv.org. From all of us here at Salt and Light, thanks for joining us.